No, I don't know. That's
It's your boy
I
Mark
think I-
and
I think I
Reggie.
stole that
We're here
from
to play
somebody
this
else.
game called Fire Emblem. 3 houses. What's the reason for 3 houses? No. Anyway, we'll go back.
So weird. Let's find out. All right, we're gonna hop into the game right now. All right.
With this transition, go. No, just like switches.
Suddenly we're all from Boston or Brooklyn. What's good?
What's going on?
I'm walking here.
Okay,
I don't
so
know.
we're back here from the last chapter. No Transformers, unfortunately, today. So if you guys are waiting for that, nope, that's gonna be next week. Explosion needs to be awake for that. He has dentist.
All your new fans are gonna be so confused when they start watching one video or the other for a specific series, and you keep talking about some other game.
It's a stream, so they need to understand this is happening in real time. So, you know.
But what happened to editing?
I don't edit anymore because this.
Oh, wait,
is
you don't edit. That's right. Yeah.
I don't have to edit anymore. I used to, and that took up like 90% of my days off just to do it. So we don't take 2 takes. We just do this in one go. So hit or miss is what I like to say.
All right, so we'll just what's that? We'll just lemony snick it every take then. Rewind.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna go ahead and rest, and we'll get right into there. So we got our first cutscene for the day. Oh, it's Lysithia's birthday, the day that we're gonna be deploying. Happy birthday! Let's hope we don't die today.
Happy birthday! Go kill some people.
Yeah, that is your gift.
Go murder.
Go murder. All right, so. This is the Valley of
the meme
Torment.
tactical nuke.
Yeah, the tactical nuke. So so for her birthday, she's gonna go nuke everybody. Let's hear what our
Except she's got an axe.
Yeah, let's go hear what the deceased father is saying about the current situation.
In order to meet up with their reinforcements.
So wait, we're gonna see Gerald?
The Valley of Torment.
He's the one narrating here.
Oh,
yeah.
Gerald narrates this shit?
Yeah.
Alright, so now we know 3 houses, none of the routes are actually canon. It's just Gerald talking about what happens if you leave.
Alright, here we go.
Gerald never died.
No, he just hit
Dimitri
himself
never
to
lost
repair
an eye.
himself. I thought we had this clear. He hit himself to repair himself.
Historically, there have been battles whose outcomes were determined in part.
Let's not open that can of worms. Let's not talk about X6. All right.
Things like these, who knows what will become of our morale?
So how does it go? It's like, oh, hi everybody. It's like we're back with Mega Man X6. I hate this game.
Monks once used this area as an ascetic
I
training.
actually haven't watched any of that dude's videos in like a long ass time.
Same here. The last one I watched was the Punch Out video series he did.
Oh, I did Punch Out? The fuck?
Yeah, he played Punch Out. That's pretty old now.
Which one?
The Wii one.
Oh, okay. So the one that you were playing.
Yeah.
The forest that once covered the surrounding area was burnt to ash by a pillar of light that ascended from the heavens. That legend fueled belief in a
Yeah, we got not to do here, talking about whatever's going on the field.
where one sins of
Yeah, so
Yes, I was watching a video that was talking about that mentioned this scene.
Not so easily washed away.
Yeah, I was analyzing
there are no accounts of such
javelins of light.
Yet those who cannot face their own sins
Freaking
have no
missiles.
choice but to cling to the idea.
missiles.
It was like, remember that time when Fire Emblem had literal missiles? I was like, it did? I'm like, oh right, yeah, 3 houses, huh?
Is it just me?
Yeah, but we never really get to talk about missiles on this route. It's mostly on the other.
Yeah,
two.
which is stupid. Why doesn't Blue Lions deal with the actual threat?
Soldiers?
Why doesn't Crimson Flower deal with the actual threat?
Can't be.
Why is it that only Silver Snow and Verdant Wind
And sold out Vargas.
partially deal with the actual threat?
Yeah, because they never really snuff
There
them
must have been a
out.
spy among us.
Yeah. Every single ending is just like, and then they went to fight those who slither in the dark, and then they vanquished those who slither in the dark later on.
Hey, it's Rain.
I was
Hi,
like-
Rain.
all I can think is like, but why? Like, why isn't that part of the game?
I will not repeat myself. That banner belongs
Well,
to
so the
Wayne.
Valley of Torment, the entire situation is this is like a volcanic land mass
His Highness
that
is correct. He is
Thanks
not
to a
the
nuke.
whom we can expect in the
thanks to a nuke. What, this was nuked?
Instead of radiation, it made lava,
Okay, this is
and the primitive people of Fodlan think, oh yes, this must be divine punishment for something that we don't know, because shit if we know anything that happened in ancient times.
Isn't that kind of like the basis for everything that happens in ancient times? In any fiction, it's like, hey,
Yeah,
it's from the
except
heavens
that,
now.
yeah, but like the poorly done fictions will tell you exactly what happened because, oh, scholars and prophecies.
Ah, I see. Okay, so
And I was like, oh, cool. So basically, that means that's exactly what's going to happen as soon as we set out on this journey.
all right, so we got Balthus with Gylith here. I think my entire team setup hasn't changed much. Yeah.
So armor knights all around, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the big beefy boys and girls. All right, so yeah, let me save so we don't have to go through that all over again. And I think we're good. I don't need strategy goes out the window. My team is already OP. All right, so Gwendol. Apparently he
Which
used
is
to.
exactly what makes these videos so hard to talk about.
Well, we can talk about other things as well in terms of what's going on with the game. But so I think this is one of the first real canonical level where you have lava
He is
patches.
an elder knight who served
You just take 1 damage after it turns over. It's not really that big of a deal, or I think 5 damage. Whatever the case is, it's very minute. It's not gonna be too much.
No,
of a
you
problem.
think something like that would be like 10 damage or something.
Pale is a deadly place.
Yeah, especially with the name of the Valley of Torment.
Sane people usually avoid it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, this map is not too terribly hard. I would say the one where
Like,
you
I'm not feeling the torment from this valley.
You wish to spare yourself
needs more
the
lava.
gods' wrath. Tread lightly.
Then again, I didn't really feel the insanity from the cliffs either. or I did feel the fire from the swamps.
from the swamps. Well, I will say one thing. In terms of the game, the gameplay itself, the one way I feel like Fire Emblem needs to innovate itself is to kind of have more things going on with the maps. A lot of times, especially in this game, and I would say Conquest, the changes are so minor. It's almost like you could ignore those changes that they put in the map and just play it like a normal level, and you are not punished for it.
Well, if you feel that way, you can always play an older game.
Well, yeah, but the older game comes with like archaic design. But I'm more getting at when you get a new game.
Okay.
Aren't the older games very archaic?
I'll comply.
I mean, they're still solid games as far as like strategy goes. As long as you know what does what and everything like that. It's about strategy still. And also, it requires planning, some decent RNG, and knowing what you're doing. Depending on the difficulty, anyway.
I'm more trying to get at the the map design. Not necessarily like
and the older titles do have good maps according to a lot of the Fire Emblem community, as opposed to a lot of the samey maps in the current titles.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's like the maps just feel like they're rearranged, but we're not actually doing anything super different. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Exactly. So I was like, well, you could always try playing one of the older Fire Emblem games.
I wish. If
And it's not like they'd be huge grind fests either, because like they're usually straight to the point. It's just map and then some story and then map, and like it's not like you gotta like run around and juggle other systems to it either, unless you're playing like I don't know one of the DS remakes or some shit.
See you, Ren. Yeah, that definitely is the case with that. Just I look at this game and they introduced, I think, a few key things like the fog of war. I believe we've talked about this before, but like the fog of war, and they
Fog of War is not new.
Yeah, but they introduced that thing in here into the like the mechanic, and they only use it one time. They only use it one time, and I'm like, we could have had more levels with that were like part of the main story, but no, it's just used that one level during the pre-time skip. And I'm like, okay, well, that's underwhelming. I don't know,
And then like there's some other there's a lot of things that Three Houses didn't do that it could.
Yeah, so I'm just looking for more.
We're gonna keep on talking about that.
Yeah, we've talked about we've had hours worth of discussion about this and that about that, but I'm more getting at just the map design in itself. I'm looking for innovation. But innovation wise, I
mean, like if you really feel like the maps in this game are too samey or don't have enough going on, try playing some of the older titles. You might be surprised with how much it asks you to do to actually make it through the map well.
Because I think the last time I was severely challenged, besides the really brutal hard mode in this game, the nightmare mode, was that one map, or it was a couple of the maps from Conquest, because they were pretty hard. They had a lot of things going against you, and you didn't have a rewind.
Yeah, feature. Conquest is the harder title among fates. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I'm looking at the whatchamacallit, the like difficulty wise, yeah, I played a difficult Fire Emblem game, quote unquote, but it just you know the gimmick they had with I was gonna say Conquest, but with Fates, it was the Dragon Veins. They did a couple of things with them to the point where like, okay, it's enough to justify a change. Like, the maps drastically were different, but it wasn't a lot of it. There was maybe like, I could say 3 Dragon Veins that were important enough to use, but you could ignore them.
Yeah, I'd say Dragon Veins were more of a gimmick than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just where I'm at with it. When I'm thinking about like a map, it's like, oh, if you go to this map, it changes the flooring, raises up, and you go up like a level above the ground or something, or it triggers some other monster to show up and like put their hand down and smack this entire area. You can be really creative with that, but I just feel like in the same way like with Pokemon, they're like slowly but surely inching towards improvement at a snail pace. When it comes to map design, like I said again, I love this game to pieces a lot, but it just I know they're in a future game. I will love some more innovation with map design, just to make it feel way more fresher than they're leading on.
I think what they should do is actually have more unique maps.
Here is something to believe in.
Because I know this one gets a lot of flack for having, like, I think maybe, what was it, like a total of 15 different maps, and most of them all get reused like at least 5 to 6 times.
Yes.
For some fit.
Yeah, they're right.
With
about
barely
that.
anything different going on in any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, I think they should maybe actually make a unique map for like each chapter. And if they're gonna make their next title still have like daily simulator, aspects to it, then don't make all the repeated normal maps something that you have to go through in the main story. And I think they should always have like at least 2 new ones for like every section.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that one. It just we'll see what they'll do with that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, this extends to beyond just Fire Emblem, but in terms of what the gaming industry is doing with IPs that have been around for years, I feel like we're not getting a lot of games that we thought we were gonna get when we were younger. And let me expand on that reason. I feel like when we were younger and we got all these games, all these new ideas and concepts that came out were so new and fun that now that we're adults, they're just sticking with that and not trying to do anything that furthers the basis of why we like those games. And
they're looking at it like, okay, well, this worked, so we'll do that. So we'll do more of that.
Mm.
Yeah, because they're a business. So and they're going with the if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It won't.
Because people are still gonna buy it. It don't matter. It's got they've already got the brand recognition. People will buy it. They don't have to try as hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing where we went through the era of like, oh, it's a new coat of paint, and it's it's what you remember, but it's with higher graphics, and I believe we got to the point where we already hit that graphical plateau, where I don't think you can go any higher when you're dealing with stylized stuff. That excuse is not going to work anymore. So when
gamers prefer substance over graphics.
Mm-hmm. Well,
graphics is just a plus.
At least nowadays, more so. I remember graphics being like a graphics nut was super relevant, probably during like the mid 2000s.
Yeah, because I was like, oh my gosh, look at how pretty this is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's nothing but polygons. What do you?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's nothing but a bunch of ugly polygons. But you know what?
We love
that.
It.
Was like those were some beautiful polygons back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
That was groundbreaking at the time.
So yeah, like we look at that back then, and then we see now it's just more of the same. Like a good example, you could call me out for this or not, but like a good example is just how the Mario series is. There's just really not much like in I would say not much new going on when they were during the Wii U era. Not because they didn't know it was going to be a flop until like I want to say a good 2 years after it came out.
I mean, the Wii U wasn't horrible. It's just that it was more of the same. I will say though that like as far as on the point of Mario doesn't change because it's mainly there for the children and for the parents of the children to show to the children. Like it's new enough to be like, hey, wow, look at this. I remember back in my day, Mario used to be more like this, and then like, hey kiddo, come sit down and play a game with me. I'm just like, this is Mario. This is gaming icon. This is the McDonald's of video games. This is the most recognizable brand of all time on video games. Is Super Mario. Right?
Well, you can also remember that Nintendo knows that majority of those sales are from the 30-some-year-old people who have grown up with that. Yeah.
That is also true, but like because that's where all the income is. But at the same time, like the game is different enough to be its own title, yet it's still polished enough to be an actual game.
Oh yeah, Nintendo's always good about polish, or at least 9 times out of polish.
Yeah, the like actual Nintendo products, I don't know if we can say Intelligent Systems falls under that or Pokemon Company does, but I know they released exclusively on Nintendo, but they're not Nintendo themselves.
Yeah.
And as we can see from the last 3 generations of Pokemon and the last couple games of Fire Emblem, granted, Awakening revived the franchise when when the company itself was about to go bankrupt. And because it was so popular, they're focusing more on the aspects that Awakening did that brought in the new crowd to keep their money going. That is fine. The old games are still there for the old fans, and there's still enough in the current games for the old fans that that they can enjoy. It's just that if you're looking for an actually good written story with compelling characters, you're not gonna get a whole lot of that unless you look really deep into it.
Which not a lot of consumers are gonna do.
No. And even then, when you do look deeper into it, like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Sad that none of that really translates into the actual main experience.
Yeah.
A good example of that would be Fates. Fates is shit. and one of its best characters got shat on in the actual main story of it.
Oh, who are we talking about here?
Xander.
Xander? Oh, okay. We've had that conversation with him before, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mark.
Oh, wait, what's up, man?
Hey.
What you're saying?
Yeah, but it's just like the writing quality of the actual main sequences of the game are so bad that even going into the supplemental parts of the game that everybody touts it for, oh yeah, but the supports, but the characters, the pairings and all that, yeah, it's really cool. It's probably the best writing that any of it gets. Unfortunately, none of that actually matters because it's all optional, and therefore none of the actual main events of the game takes any of that into account.
I solidly feel that we're gonna the next Fire Emblem game is gonna be a little bit more grounded and less choice driven. They will probably still have the whole waifu mechanic. I think they're still gonna have the whole waifu mechanic. But
of course, because that's what's selling the game.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to explain here is that I think we're gonna have a more grounded, one game Fire Emblem for the next one. That's gonna be, I would think, way more, leaning on that story that people like so much. In order to not have three separate paths to map out, I think they're gonna just focus on the one where the story's gonna have way more sense to be made at the expense of your multiple routes.
They should do that.
Because in honesty, I'm not gonna be sad if we're like, oh, but I want my two other routes. No. All that's doing is splitting
means
hairs.
that they're not applying all their talents to the entire product.
Because I think the only choice thing would be either if you want to have the marriage mechanic, or what's the other thing that could definitely happen? Oh, or who lives, who dies. That has more of an appeal, and you don't have to worry about, oh, but what if I chose this path, and then you find out, oh, if this would have happened, that's stupid. Now that you know what your choice on the other side would have made. If you have one complete narrative where you don't have to see what would have happened on the other side of the coin,
exactly,
then you don't have to worry about feeling dumb or say, oh, this is dumb, because you won't ever know.
Having branches isn't horrible, but keep those branches to a minimum. For instance, say Fire Emblem 6 has two very brief route splits in the story, right?
Yeah.
And mainly what those are is just maybe 2 or 3 different maps at a time, and you get a different unit or a different set of units depending on what it is. One map will have an objective. Will have a couple of objectives, and if you complete certain objectives in that map, that will determine which route you go to next. right? And then you just keep playing from there, like, and it doesn't make it seem like there's an actual choice until you've technically done it. And like, oh, hey, why did this close off after I went to this place here? What the heck? And then, like, if you were to play it again and go to the other one, and like, same thing happens to the other place, but then suddenly the next chapter or the chapter after that, whatever, is actually completely different from each other. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Right?
Yeah.
Like, having small splits like that does add replay value, but at the same time, it doesn't completely like railroad, like, several, like, anything else to happen where, like, oh, we need a team of dedicated writers to make 20 chapters each. Like, no, it's just like, so you have your story, and then you've got an entire through line for that story.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you want to squiggle that through line a little bit, and that squiggle just happens to go in two separate directions, and then it meets back up in the middle again, and then it does it again, and then again.
Yeah.
And boom, okay, and now you're just on a straight line again. Right?
Yeah, just don't tout it as this, oh yeah, your choices mean
What's my
something when they really don't.
No, they don't, because, like, this game's choices don't fucking matter. Three houses, the choices don't matter. Because no matter what happens, no matter what you choose, the game's just not finished. I don't give a shit what any developer says about the game. It is not finished. If you like, it's one thing in this day and age to not complete a title when it's released and just get it out and have most of it done.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, you see those endings, and you see the endings on, like, each route, and they're all basically the same. Aside from from what actually happened in that individual route, where Edelgard conquered the country. Okay, cool. She abolished the church, basically, but then it turns into a meritocracy, except that, like, half her allies and recruited friends or whatever kind of convinced her to keep things basically the same still, because, like, their own interests still pertain to the old world, right?
Go figure, right?
And then, like Linhardt with his, like, studying of Crest or whatever, despite the fact that, like, Edelgard wants to destroy the system that puts so much importance on the Crests. I was like, okay, cool, yeah. And then, like, or Blue Lions. Dmitri defeats Edelgard's whole conquest in the war, and then basically nothing changes, except Rhea decides, okay, Violet, you can be in charge now.
I'm gonna go take a smoke break.
No explained reason, other than just the fact that, like, yeah, so, like, we haven't seen her, like, the entire game since the time skip. And it's like, oh yeah, right, yeah, there's supposed to be an entire plot about that, but no. Or you play Silver Snow. You stop Edelgard. You don't find Dimitri. You beat up Claude. And then you go to the place that has the dubstep.
The whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah, and then oh, what happened? Oh, like, an explosion caused Rhea to go mad. Okay, gotta stop Rhea now. Okay, and then that's it. And I was like, what?
It had to be done.
And Rhea's like, I can no longer go on. You must take my place as the head of the country and this establishment. And I was like, what? And then Verdant Wind, which actually does the most when it comes to dealing with the actual threat.
And nobody's
Actually ask you the questions and whatnot. But despite that, you'd think there would be, like, you think that amount of intrigue would go into Crimson Flower as well, because Crimson Flower, Edelgard is working directly with the main antagonists as like a necessary means to an end, but then fully intends to get rid of them as well later to actually make the world better. And all of that is handled in a small text scroll after you're done playing. Like, that would have been fine if that was only limited to like the first like 2 months or something, and they released a DLC patch,
which they never did,
to actually add in the finale to it.
You know, I feel like
hey,
that's what.
Sorry, we weren't done. Here's the rest of it.
Sorry to interrupt though, because you brought something up on that one that I feel I need to add. They marketed the DLC that they were gonna have as, oh, they were gonna have extra story content, and the way that they kind of named on it was like, oh, it's gonna tie up loose ends. Nope, it's just an unrelated story that means nothing.
Like, it was the bits that I introduced was interesting. It should have been in the main. Some of that should have been in the main game, but it was nothing groundbreaking, nor was it relevant. And even then, playing it doesn't matter anyway, because like the events of that don't even happen in the main story at any point. Like one video actually put it best. Like, they could have fit that DLC story into the time skip.
Yeah, it could have.
All they had to do was just not involve the other 3 lords, and you could have just had like a few of the students, or like, you know, like maybe a few of the staff members, right? Like, you could have like, say, like Shamir and I guess Hanuman and Manuela, right? Like, you could have had those 3, right?
Yeah.
As like the least affiliated to the actual Church of Seiros itself, right? Like, you know, it's not going to be Catherine, who you know, as you say, you know, has the body pillow, and it's not going to be frickin' Cyril, who has the body pillow. It's not going to be Stennis or Flame, because their allegiance is tied to Rhea as well.
No.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, I feel you on that one. I feel you on that one.
The hell was that other noise just now?
I think that's it's Dark Regent. Yeah, he's in the car.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Forgot you were there. Hi.
But yeah, so right now we're talking to Rodrigue. Very Western name.
Very killable character, yes.
Yeah, very killable character. You could tell by his blue hair and deadpan eyes. That's a conversation for another time. But man, this guy's.
I mean, his eyes are also pointing in different directions if you look at his 3D model.
Exactly. Now, one thing I do want to bring up as a new thing to say here. Rodrigue is a character, since we're here with him right now. He is the father of Mr. Sasuke over there, and
I thought he was the older brother.
No, he's the father. He's the father.
Oh, okay.
That's why Sasuke over there is really resentful about him, because yeah, he kind, you know how Felix.
Yeah, I mean, his death didn't need to happen. Yeah, but.
But you know, Rodrigue as a character, it doesn't again, it's one of those things that we talk about the game, very unfulfilled. Like, we find out, yeah, he's the dad. He was a father figure to Dimitri as well in some case, and then he just flat out dies, and then we're supposed to see that Dimitri cared so much, but we didn't have enough time as an audience to really like see that.
Yeah, maybe they should have introduced him earlier, or, you know,
at the beginning of the
actually
game.
Have the supports matter,
or at the beginning of the game.
I know he's mentioned a few times in some of the supports, I think, with Felix, right?
Yes, I do believe so.
Yeah. Maybe they should have had those mentions be in some of the main story as well for the Blue Lions route, at least. Yeah,
the death comes in.
I don't think they were.
The death comes in. I have more like the main point I'm trying to make though is that if you look at how when I first played this game and I heard that the dude died, I actually felt really bad. Why? Because we started.
Because you used the character.
Yeah, I used the character, but we start with that character at the beginning of the game, and you grow
Yeah.
attached to him, and
Yeah, it's called investment.
yeah, investment. And then when Rodrigue died, I'm like, well, that's kind of bad. I mean, that sucks, but I didn't have the same type of feeling as it was to losing Dedu. Like if they had Rodrigue be like a unit that you played with, and then he canonically did die and you lost him forever, one, that would suck, but also that hits deep. Probably.
Yeah, it could have been a unit for like two or three chapters, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But
Like Gerald, or
yeah, like Gerald. Yeah. Well, I know that Final Fantasy does this a lot with their characters in story, where
it depends.
they put a character in there for story reasons. You're like, oh, they give you the ability to level them up, put gear on them, and then due to story circumstances they die, and then I don't know if you lose the items they had on them.
Depends on the game.
Yeah, it depends on the game, but I know like that type of stuff I feel is very much a cool addition, because most games, at least the ones I play, have programmed me to believe, oh, he's a party member, he's not gonna die. They wouldn't put so much skill tree in this character just to let him go. Well, well, it looks like you're not using that character in the next playthrough, but for the first time,
Exactly.
you're not gonna see that coming.
I was like, oh, you like using Eris for her healing limit breaks? Oh, that's cool. Have fun not using them anymore on the next playthrough, because you know it's going to be a waste of time.
Yeah, well, don't bother with her ultimate healing power or something. You have to really try for.
Yeah, like you gotta go like you have to go so out of your way to get it, and it's only available for disc 1. and then she dies. It's like, why? It's like I don't get it. Why don't they just use a Phoenix down? It's like they can't do that, Reggie. Why not? It's a story death.
Win in the battle, lose in the cutscene.
I was like, story death. So what happens when they die in battle?
They're knocked out. So
they're not actually dead at that point. That's a game death, not a story death. Like, is that for real?
So getting back on topic with Rodrigue, Rodrigue is essentially lended his forces, so our army is slightly bigger.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, with all of us just here, no soldiers surrounding the premise.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I really couldn't tell, considering I'm only seeing the same 10 people. It's like, yes, we feel very bolstered now.
You know what's funny though? I feel like maybe 15 or 20 years from now, they'll remake this game, and then it's gonna look like what we were complaining about. It should be done. By
then, it'll be too late.
Well, we'll see how the gaming climate is in that time. But
like it's one thing to remake something from like the retro era where you didn't have where the tools literally weren't capable of doing the things that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to take something that is technically already considered a complete product, and then try and remake it just because it got bad reviews.
Well,
actually, this didn't even get bad reviews.
Yeah,
this got reviews. Glowing reviews.
Yes, Nintendo paid the right people to get this game to do well.
people sucked this game's dick.
Yeah,
it was no business.
Yeah, they looked at the game for it being a very Fire Emblem game, not necessarily what Fire Emblem could be. So,
well, they looked at it for like a day. I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Game's pretty fun. The mechanics are interesting. The fact that you have a choice in where the story goes is actually pretty cool. I like it. Yeah.
And they didn't the game.
Yeah, 9 out of 10. It's like, y'all didn't reach the ending, did you? It's like, y'all didn't play through each of them. Now you're like, you don't get to make a review about it unless you've played the entire game. Oh god.
But yeah, look, I say you say that, but then we got games like Sonic Colors Ultimate, and that's a Wii game, which in itself was pretty perfect, and all they did was make it slightly less perfect, but make it look prettier. higher fidelity console, and added just.
So in other words, it's an inferior product. So
yeah, but it was
then it doesn't
a
matter.
remake. It was a remake, so that still puts my point there.
But if we could
So-
now, taking something like Resident Evil 1
the Alliance, won't we?
from the original PlayStation
Yeah,
and then redoing it completely from the ground up, but it's still exactly the same with like a few new additions just to spice it up
yeah.
and extend it a little on a completely new console. It looks and they just make it look as pretty as possible.
Mhm.
That's fine.
Advice.
Taking a game that's already that already functions and then making it worse, but the graphics. look at the graphics. Yeah, and it doesn't fucking run. Like that's like having a computer that runs super smoothly. No problems. But then you're like, "Oh, but this new computer has a much better screen." Despite the fact that it has an inferior processor, an inferior graphics card, an inferior memory, or what, it's inferior everything else. But like, oh, but this one's so much better because look at this nice screen.
Well, the main point I'm trying to make is you did ask, when I asked, but you did say that, how could you, how could you make remake a game if
I'm not going to
if
say
it's not
how
older.
could I'm saying I doubt they would.
Oh, well, it's possible. I would say with this game, probably in like 20, 15 years, they'd probably remake it to make it like a complete version.
If Intelligent Systems is going to remake anything within 25 years, they're going to remake the rest of the original series first.
I would say
In
that they're
the
more.
same vein as Pokemon is trying to remake every generation.
I would say they were more likely to get remakes of the games nowadays as opposed to 20 years from now.
Much appreciated.
I mean, yeah, probably, but even then, like,
Because they already
I'm saying within those 20 years.
well, that's also true, but I would say they tested the waters with the Fire Emblem release, the localization of Fire Emblem 1.
Yeah, which did fine, but did not well enough for them to localize the slightly better sequel that actually finishes the story.
Like I know
Exactly how it was in the original Nintendo releases, where the first game was actually 2 games, and then Gaiden was it was something that was released in the middle of that as a completely separate thing.
Yeah, and I know that Nintendo has their biggest ace in their sleeve if they want to get any Fire Emblem like vet to come back is just re-release the Path of Radiance games. Really re-release those. You're going to make a lot of money.
The Telia series would be the way to go. Yeah. People love that. It's a cult classic, despite the fact that it's sold badly.
Re-release it or remake it. I don't know. Like right now, Fire Emblem is at their height. They could take a chance with that and see just how it goes. It's on the Switch, and considering that
If Path of Radiance had the Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn had the, I guess the graphical presentation of 3 houses, but had nothing else changed about the gameplay itself, it'd probably do really well.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like the story's pretty damn good, and the structure of it is pretty much old school Fire Emblem. And the only thing really bad about it is the fact that the animation sucks and the voice acting.
It was a product of its time.
Fuck that. Like, if you were to play a clip that from that had voice acting in it, it'd be really bad. But like the art and the FMVs, those look really good. Even today, they still look really good. It's just everything else that's the gameplay animation is bad.
Yo, Regent, if you're having something to do, please do it somewhere else. We're having an intellectual conversation.
I mean, is he trying to?
I'm playing a game.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
It's calm it down a bit. At least Reggie, when he plays games, doesn't make like boisterous noises about what's going on in it. He at least pretends to look like he's watching the stream.
That is true.
Yeah.
I do pretend. Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer.
Well, actually, no, I don't even pretend. I just feel like, oh, I'm not what. I was like, I haven't been looking. Like I haven't paying attention. I'm doing something else.
But yeah, the close things off, because we're gonna be ending the stream here very soon. But to end things off with the Fire Emblem bit, I just I'd be down to play a remake of it. It's just I'm not gonna shell out hundreds of dollars just to play it on a GameCube and such and such. That's just how my stand on the game is. I'm happy to have played Fates. For as bad as Fates was, I'm happy I got to be introduced to a system that's like this gameplay system. Was it because I've told you before, essentially my first Fire Emblem was Advance Wars, and somehow that type of gameplay as a child I really liked it. I don't know if it was because there was not many options out there for me to play, and that just was one of the things that I forced myself to like. But it is very much a thing that resonated with me when I started playing the 3DS Fire Emblem games. I'm happy that Fates was there, so I could pick up this game series and be like, yeah, I like where this is going. And
that's fine. Like, all power to you on that front. Like,
I will say when this game first was announced during one of the E3s, I was super skeptical if I was gonna like it or not. It wasn't because of the story. It wasn't because of any type of
because we didn't know anything about the story at the time.
Yeah, it was about how this school system was gonna work. I was like, am I gonna like this? How in depth is it gonna be? Am I gonna understand it? And these characters were for what it was advertised as, was like a very different style than Fates was. Fates was very not traditional, like modern.
It still looked like it could fit in other Fire Emblem series, aside from like the obviously fan service designs. Yeah. Like if you just looked at like the face portraits, is like, yeah, these look like they fit, and then you see Perry.
Perry would fit in this game more so than the other one, right?
Yeah. I mean, like Perry would fit in like Tokyo Mirage Session if she wasn't in plate armor.
Damn, yeah.
But outside of, like, she looks like a Persona character or an SMT character, but not a Fire Emblem character. She looks like somebody was a big fan of Harley Quinn and wanted to make that a character.
Well, fair point on that. Anyway, point is, I really liked I really liked that, and when I took the chance in this game, I enjoyed it. I think the biggest thing that carries this series is just the gameplay. It has a really positive feedback loop that you get from just doing
Three Houses. Yeah, Three Houses. The gameplay really carried it. Story was fine. It's serviceable, incomplete, but serviceable, I guess, if you're into that. But the gameplay is like the main crux of it. It's the main draw. It's the main thing that'll keep people coming back to it.
Right. Well, that sounds like our closing thoughts when we beat the game. But my opinion will pretty much stay on there. Like I joked around by Great Lord class. Ooh. What does this look like? Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you for just automatically doing that.
This will do.
Oh, that looks hideous.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, don't kind of big, too poofy for my taste. But whatever. I like the
he's trying to copy Final Fantasy IV now. He went from dark armor to light armor.
Well, anyway, we'll end things off there. And so we can go to sleep early this time. But yeah, my closing thoughts on the whole deal with the initial conversation was the map design and what they could do to innovate. I think the one thing I would like from a new Fire Emblem, not just in map design, is just have not that many characters. And I know this is the hot take on it. I know you're like, well, how are you going to fill out your
No,
armor?
I don't care about that at all. I actually have something else I was going to ask you regarding your whole thought
Okay,
on this.
Okay, well, let me
I was gonna ask you what specifically do you mean by innovate?
So, you know how Sonic, in Sonic games, you got Sonic 1, you go fast. In Sonic 2, you introduce a spin dash, adds so much utility. Sonic 3, you introduce different characters that have different ways to explore your environment. That is how you innovate off a formula that you're inherently buying the same game, but you're playing it in a slightly different way that it feels different enough that you justify paying the 50 USD, 60 USD. That's how I look at it. Now, when I look at Fire Emblem, and to some extension, the Advanced Wars series, I look at the games and I'm like, okay, so what makes this game different from the core gameplay? I'm not looking at the waifu simulator part. Like that is very that is like
that's par for the course.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure so that way you don't ask like, oh, are you expecting that to be different enough? I say that despite the whole waifu simulator bit, it is so not nonsensical. It is so unimportant / very little of the devs' time was probably put into those type of things to make it be like, oh, this is a seller. You get to go so in detail. Talking to your waifu. No, it's not even that much. The main point I'm trying to get at is the map design and what you're doing with the core gameplay itself. The one big thing I will praise Fates for, as better than this game, is the customization with units. You could make they had so many different overpowered and also different and unique classes that every single time I played that game, I did not pick the same Heavy Knight setup I would do in this game. Is what I'm saying. I joke around saying I want a Heavy Knight that can heal people. They don't have that type of class in Fates, but it was very much you could have some type of class that looked aesthetically different and also did different things when you went in there. That was like a big change that I feel innovated on that end. You could make every character a different class that pushed it. So we're here in this game. You're doing the exact same thing, a little bit more limited, I would say, due to the whole classroom situation. But okay, we did that already. So now what? Okay, well, it's a class situation. Well, I just discussed that's a side to your main meat course of what the gameplay is. Okay, so when you're on the map, what's different? Okay, Fog of War. We just said that's nothing new. So you do it for one map. Okay, that you introduced a mechanic in the game, but you only use it one time, and that's it. So big whoop. What else are you adding in there? We added battalions. Okay, battalions is just a screen nuke. That's not necessarily enough to be like, woo, this is gonna get me excited. Oh, I get to use the gambit here. No. Okay, so what else did you do? We added a giant creatures. Okay, you kind of did that in the other Fate's final boss one. Sure, I'll give you that pass. Giants, they're in here. Okay, you get to fight giant creatures. All right, so what else can you do? I can't think of anything else that is like really a big deal that makes the game change so much that you feel like it's an advancement off the normal formula. And yeah, I did say Spin Dash, but Spin Dash is a fundamentally really big game changer in Sonic 1 to Sonic 2.
But also keep in mind that you're looking at a platformer game where something as minimal where a single change in movement actually matters, whereas you're also looking at at its core, basically chess.
Yeah, basically. So
it is a strategy game, and you say that the gameplay itself, the gameplay of moving people around and beating enemies on a grid is the core that that's pulling you in.
Yeah.
And then you're like, so they didn't really do much with the map. They didn't really do much with anything with gimmicks. So I want them to innovate next time. And it's like, okay, well, when you say innovate, like what do you mean? Like what do you want them to do? Like
Okay.
what do you think
I have an answer for
would
that.
be
I have an answer for that.
like an actual innovation to the formula?
So I look at Fates, and I think of Fates they had your grassy plain, they had your fog of war, they had your nighttime section, they had an ice level gimmick as well, and they had that wind gimmick as well, and the teleporting gimmicks as well. There was a lot of different gimmicks that made a different map feel fresh and new, despite sometimes reusing backgrounds and all that. This game has a total of grassland, volcano land, and church. Like, okay, and a lot of the different maps, especially with the voice acted side paralogs that you are expected, if you want to put more time into the game to have more enjoyment in, are just remixed versions of the same map, and they did not do anything to differentiate it. Now, where's, I obviously I don't want to have like a Mario situation where you have all the environmental areas, but for this game, it would be a plus. Like, wouldn't it be cool to be in an ice area where you can't, if you step on
through a snowy mountain or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
At some point.
Yeah,
every Fire Emblem game has that.
Except this one.
like every Fire Emblem game has a desert area. It has a treacherous looking place. It has a snow map. And there will usually be several fog of war maps.
Yeah,
where either because like the setting is like in nighttime, or because like the location itself just naturally has a lot of like fog and mist or whatever. To go back to like say Path of Radiance, or it might have been Radiant Dawn actually. There were swamp maps as well.
Oh, great.
And granted, all of those, like a lot of those gimmicky, like different maps, the gimmicks do like one or two things that I guess kind of irks a lot of normal players, which is that your units can't move much in any of those. Which slows down the pace a lot, because they tend to be really big maps still.
Well,
now, granted, I won't complain about that, but like the thing that you're talking about for innovation is literally in every single other game.
And the thing that came to my mind as well is, the dubstep place, that is very technology driven, correct? It's like like modern technology, but like what if you had a situation where you're on the map and then you could choose, there's a choose, or you're forced to be in a position to race against the enemy to activate a robot. You get to the robot, you activate it, and then that robot becomes a unit on your team.
Yeah, unique objectives.
Yeah, unique objective. Well, this is like every map
or unique side stuff to interact with in the map.
Yeah, and then also let's say another situation where the map is being played on a giant robot. Like, you push a button and it activates the arm to move to like a higher plateau of the map, or go to the bottom plateau of a map, and you have like essentially 3 levels worth of areas you need to get to. That is cool. I don't think I've seen that in a Fire Emblem game.
That would be pretty cool as a presentation thing. Although I do have to mention that what you're describing is basically Dragon Maid.
Well, we're not talking about Dragon Mage here. We're talking about Fire Emblem.
I know, but like as far as like the whole like the map has a gimmick that like you do something to interact with it to make it change. That's the Dragon Maids.
Or be as spontaneous as we're in another forest map, and like 3 turns in, all of a sudden this giant nuke lands in the middle of the map, and the entire map is now ravaged on fire, and like a lot of the terrain is all messed up. You don't really get anything like that, where now the plan has to change, or half your units are stuck on the other side because you didn't plan for this thing to happen. Stuff like that. I think a little bit of that happened in Fates, but again, here in this game, it's like they went backwards with a lot of the safe ways of doing stuff. I think the only thing that catches you off guard is when reinforcements.
Yeah.
Huh?
safe is a good word to use with
Yeah.
Three Houses. Yeah, they kept it very safe
Safe. And
as far as gameplay design goes. The main crux that they were relying on was the fact that you have a school setting to like simulation. It's basically a dating sim, or like or rather, it's just a sim.
Yeah,
but with the strategy war thing.
And so when I finished up with the whole deal with the map here, I look at the characters, and I said this very briefly, like you limit the amount of characters, and I say, let's say you have 6 characters or you have 8 characters that are of importance. If you are looking at it from a one driven storyline, like you were talking about, one little deviation, it adds flavor text and may add something to you in gameplay wise and some story wise if you choose to do it, but you're essentially still going on a railroad. I would say if you have a limited amount of characters, 8 characters, and you make them as different as you want, whatever the case is, and then they die, like, of course not the main person, because that's the main driver of the plot for any Fire Emblem game. And they die, they get replaced. If you go into a new battle and they're dead forever, they're out of the game, and they're replaced with a nobody from the army, a nobody face. And you're pretty much stuck. You remember we talked a little bit about this before, where you're like, well, then you're going to be out of luck without having that one unit doing this. Well, you're essentially sacrificing that character's unique trait with a soldier that is more or less around those same stats, that doesn't interact with your people, doesn't get the exact same boons, and you're having a harder time playing the game, but it's still possible, I would say. And that is one way that I feel like can add more of that risk factor that these games claim they have, but they don't really. Like, you could still have a backwards time stop ability to stop it from happening, but there are so many times that you could pretty much say, well, I can't feasibly save this, my skill is not good enough. The whole save scumming bit is not necessarily going to save you all the time. So when I look at the whole deal with people's death and have a limited amount of characters, one, it gives you more time to actually care about them. So if they do die based on a decision you make either in game or in the cutscenes or whatever, those type of things, that would make more of a compelling way for you to be like, oh man, damn, I lost this character. I feel honestly really bad, as opposed to some of the stuff here where, minus the whole New Game Plus bit where I saved everybody. You kill somebody from the other side, you're like, well, yeah, sure, I didn't really get to play as them, so therefore I don't really care if I kill them. That's kind of how I felt on my first run when I played with Blue Lions. Sure, I killed the other students, but they were just the other students. I had nothing attached to them. Is kind of what I'm getting at. Hopefully I'm not getting too confusing there. It's just having a less amount of people.
I get what you're saying. I kind of want to interject.
Go for it.
So part of what you're saying there with the whole have a unit, that fulfills a specific role or like plays a specific like class or job or whatever in your army, and then like if you lose them or you like don't, or if you miss the chance to obtain them, you can instead get basically a generic character that does the exact same thing. There is also a title in the franchise that does that as well.
Perfect. What game is that? Is that the first one?
No, it's Genealogy of the Holy War, the 4th game, the Jungle series. The first game to have child units.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, like, the thing with that is, like, so you have your first generation characters, and then, like, you pair them off, and then you get their children who get who like have certain benefits or whatever based on the character, on like the other parent, right? But like if you say lost those characters before you got that chance, then like, well, clearly the second generation would be out of luck because you wouldn't have all your units to obtain. Well, to fix that, to accommodate that in case you sunk at the game but still made it through, they give you what's basically inferior generics that are still characters somewhat. Like they have a name and they have a face, right? They have portraits and stuff, but they're not like the special characters.
Like you could lose them,
They're just-
and they're still going to be back in the next one because it's implied to be some other character that took their place.
No, like they'd still die permanently. But like a part of like what you're saying with like the whole like you lose a character and then like or like you lose a character, but like later on you still have characters to replace that. Like that's they have done something like that. Not to the extent that what you're talking about, because what you're talking about is literally just casual mode. That's except like you're saying like, okay, let's have classic mode, but it's actually casual mode is basically what you said.
Well,
So you lost a unit. I've been defeated. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't go on. They fade. Like, oh, you have like, the whole like death thing, but then suddenly you're like, oh, but like at the end of the chapter or like at the start of the next chapter, just like random generic unit, same class, similar stats, just no boots. I was like, that. I don't think that would work. Plus, they've kind of done something kind of in that same vein, just not in the way that you're talking about.
well,
I get what you're saying, but I don't think they do that because you're literally just describing classic mode, but with the caveat of still being casual mode.
well, the only reason why I decided to bring in a unit to replace that, and obviously anything that we say that would make these games better, Nintendo's or intelligent system is never going to do. It's just we got to know that going in.
And
So it's always good to kind of come up with an idea that maybe, who knows, one day someone will say it. Somebody more important than us echoes our motions, and then somehow, somewhere, someone says something, and like, you know what? Let's use that idea. So I just say
your idea is not horrible, but as far as like the fact that Fire Emblem is about like you're supposed to care about these characters, they're not faceless. So like you lose a character, you didn't just, oh no, I lost a soldier. You're like, oh
I
no,
lost my friend.
Jimmy just died.
Yeah.
But Jimmy was about to confess was on a quest to obtain money for his family. That's the only reason why he was fighting in this war that he doesn't want to be in. His sickly sister is going to benefit if he participates in this life or death this civil war situation of world-ending proportions.
Yeah.
Or like, oh no,
Which
poor
is
dancer. All she wanted was to just
dance.
Open up her a performance troupe, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, now she'll never achieve her dream.
Yeah.
But you're like, and you're saying it's like, oh yeah, let's have a few of these unique people, and then if we lose them, okay, well, so you lost them. You get all of those like, oh no, I just lost Timmy, but they're like, oh, but here's guy, here's dude, and here's chick.
Well,
what's
the main
their
purpose
story?
of that,
They don't have a story. They're just your
army.
Your grunt.
Yeah, they're essentially your army. Well,
Cool, I don't care.
The main reason. Well, you don't level them up. That's the thing. The main point of it, the main idea behind it was that the question will come in. Well, then you're now down one unit. You're not going to be able to beat the game now. So how do you?
No, but that's the whole point of why they have so many characters, though.
Well, that's something you give a good amount. I say 8 as like my max in terms of like a character. Maybe you could bring in more. Who knows?
Eight is for like a normal RPG.
Fates really love to throw characters even near late game to you when you have absolutely no attachment
that's
to make.
all of Fire Emblem.
So when it comes down to that, I feel like the longer you're with a character from beginning to end, the more attached you'll get, as opposed to, hey, here's Mr. OP guy that you're gonna get 3 chapters before you beat the game. I hope you start shipping them. So that's that's kind of where I get out with that. So when it comes to a balancing situation, the grunt would pretty much be there, but not necessarily like you don't talk to them. You don't, there's no you're right. This is guy, this is chick, this is a rando. They would not be in your like setup screen. They would just be assigned to you based on the need that you had from the other unit. You're able to control them. They die. And then if they die, the next one
you're
is
basically asking for a game that's not Fire Emblem at its core. Then you're basically just asking for Advance Wars.
Well, for those units particularly,
that's you're basically asking for Advance Wars instead of Fire Emblem. That's all you're doing.
Well, the difference between,
like I said, Fire Emblem is like at its core. Fire Emblem is about the units, not just the generals. It's about like the crux of the gameplay and for the player investment is the units, not just so I'm gonna send a bunch of faceless troops over this way, and all right, cool, yeah, we won, of course we would, or dang, we didn't win.
Can I paint you a scenario? Okay. Can I paint you a scenario with this mechanic? Because I feel like maybe I've
please do.
Okay, so
please do, because you like the more you were talking about, the more I'm like trying to I want to interject and point out that
okay, let me explain here. Let me explain here.
It's all the Fire Emblem that does that, and two, it's like go ahead.
Let me explain here. The whole deal with that being said is that you're not the difference between Advance Wars and Fire Emblem is that not even in Advance Wars you don't even play as the commanding officer. They're not on the field.
Yeah,
that's the biggest problem.
They're just giving orders.
Yeah, you're giving orders to the Faceless Army and hope that what's the word of it? War of attrition. you could beat your person, the enemy team. In Fire Emblem, you are correct. It is about the characters and how they interact with each other and how they have an impact to the plot and how this and this and this happens. Now, let me paint an example here. Okay, you have. I'm going to use the minimum. It could be more, but you have 8 characters. All right, you have the 8 characters. Okay. You have one of the 8 characters is your lord or your great lord, whatever it is. It's the main character that drives the plot. Yeah. So if he dies, it's game over. You cannot go out without him. Yeah. You need him. He is for that. Let's say, for plot's sake, you need to defeat the empire that is weighing everyone down, and you have your ragtag team supported by your tiny army in order to turn the tides. Okay. As you've stated before, each one has their own motivation. Tim over here, he wants to go ahead and beat this war so he could go back to his family that is desperately needing him to take care of them. Jerry over here, he is a scientist that is hoping that using his inventions in the war will get him popular or whatever after the war's over. And then you got Elizabeth, who wants to open up this, like you said, the store or whatever, after the war is over. Okay, so you have these motivations. Now, if let's say Jerry dies, okay, you have an entire deal that happens after the map is over and he's dead. You have a cutscene, and I'm not talking about like a very passing cutscene. You have a cutscene of like, oh man, we lost Jerry, and you're pretty much seeing him in the hospital and he's going out. Okay, and then you pretty much say, oh man, we don't have Jerry's inventions. Okay, so you lost a huge boon on that one. Now you get to endgame. Okay, you get to endgame, and you end up having this like reflection time of your main guys. Like, let us honor all the people who we have lost, and then you kind of like a look at the units, the main units that you lost during that time, and you have that little bit where the survivor people were being like, yes, we will fight for everything, and you probably either get a buff or something based on your rage or whatever, or something around those lines, basically on the people you lost. After game is over, you have, and I'm not talking about like how this game does it where it's in text, you have your guy look over and see what has happened based on the people that have lived and died. Let's say Jerry, that science thing, well, we find out, oh well, his inventions would have been good. As a new war sets up, they have the technology and you don't. So that kind of leaves you like, oh man, I kind of screwed up. I wish he would have survived. Or you have the guy with his family. He dies. You go over there as with the Great Lord, and you see the family died. or something happened, and you check out the village because they died of a famine. They didn't get out in time after because the war took too long, or something would have happened where the guy could have saved them if he was able to rush back in time after they won against the Empire. Stuff like that. And then it makes you feel really bad. Just like, oh man, I should have kept that unit alive because now these things are happening. That type of bit. Kind of where I'm going on with the consequences that you have do carry over to the aftermath of the battle they go down in, the before the final battle, and then after the final battle bit. Obviously, afterwards, you can't change anything else to it, but the decision that you made had an impact on the ending, and you see it. That is kind of where I'm going from. And so when you replace the unit with a random faceless guy, yeah, you're not supposed to care about them, and you could pretty much throw them to die because, as we all know, in all these Fire Emblem games, when you have a random nobody, you're not going to care. But that's only because you got to that point in the game where you lost a good unit that you cared about, that now that other person, you're okay, well, whatever. If you're getting to a point where it's just you as the Great Lord and you lost everyone, you're going to suffer the consequences of losing everyone's boons and then having a harder time beating the game. You know, and then you'd have that post-credit / before where you're just like, well, I'm by myself now and I lost everyone, and that will have some type of dynamic change to how the final battle goes. So that's kind of how I look at it from that point of view. You say it's You say it's Fire Emblem imitating Advanced Wars. I say it's Fire Emblem.
The way that you presented it to me at first, yeah, because you're saying let's instead of getting more characters that can fulfill that same role later on, as the franchise tends to do, where it gives you 20 characters total or whatever, and so you'll have 2 or 3 of each type of class.
Yeah.
At throughout the game, which they structure it that way in case you either don't train the other characters or because you lose them, and so having a character that can do this or that would be useful for this map or the map after they join. So here's another one of those guys so you can still play the game. Yes, but at the same time they're also their own person still. And you can get to know that person as well. So it's not just oh no, I lost all my oh no, my friends, my allies, they're all gone. Now I must dread and angst because I have lost everything. No, I was oh no, I've lost my people, and the player's oh no, I lost all my characters. But then I was oh, thank God, more characters. And then you use those characters oh my gosh, this character's so good. Oh my gosh, don't, they live. Oh, and I was you get invested in those characters as well, or you can be like you, where it's just I only like to get invested in the characters I started with. I don't like getting invested in new characters. I don't like getting invested in more characters. I just want to get invested in the first character. I was okay, so this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that from a gameplay standpoint, what you're saying is I want classic mode, but actually it's casual mode, which in itself is already kind of a it's already a split base. Well, to deprive the player of more characters just because you want the characters that, in all honesty, are not going to be fleshed out outside of the few limited supports that the franchise is known for, as far as how they structure it and how much you can obtain.
Yeah.
Outside of that, and the replay factor of trying a different support, you're basically saying, yeah, so how we have such a wide array of different characters of all shapes and sizes. Yeah, fuck all that. Let's just give you your starting party of shit who will have interesting characters to themselves, but only to themselves, because the structure of this game is mainly focused on the main character, because yes, anyone can die. therefore the supports are what makes you invested in them outside of just the gameplay.
Maybe I'm
Story
looking
is
at
the
it too
one
much
thing.
in the story aspect because I'm trying to compensate for
You
a
are
reasonable
kind of
amount.
looking at it too much at the story. Like what you're saying isn't horrible, but at the same time, that's not really Fire Emblem. Unless it was a much shorter game. Like say it was only like 10 chapters, but like each chapter just had but like each map was just a slog to get through, right? Like a huge map, several objectives, changing objectives, maybe
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
ambushes, reinforcements.
Just stop making it root the enemy.
Whatever. Yeah. Whatever, like all of that, but like it's just like, but there's like 10 of those, and then like you have like your core cast, like say you start off like maybe 3 characters, and like the first one's kind of small scale, right?
Yeah.
And then like the second one, you get like 2 more characters, and it's a little more spread out, and then like you get, and like by the 4th chapter, you got your whole cast. Okay, and then like you can just do whatever. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like that's basically what you're saying is like let's make a 12 episode anime instead of let's make a 50 episode anime with loads and loads of characters. Like no, let's make a 12 episode anime and try and make it really count. That's what you're saying, which is fine.
It'd
but
be
I would
different.
say that
It'd definitely be
not
different.
Fire Emblem.
It definitely would be different. Well, a lot of what Fire Emblem nowadays is not what Fire Emblem used to be. So
that is also true. You can thank Awakening and Fates for that.
Yeah. So I will agree with you on to the point.
I won't say it's bad, but but it is different.
Yeah, and different is not necessarily bad, but also different could be bad. I will acknowledge that. But my main point is I'm looking at it from a narrative point of view because we as the adult consumers have a lot of issue and umbrance when it comes to how the story has been with Fire Emblem.
Contrivances.
Yeah, contrivances and all that. So, I look at it and say, well, what would make a better Fire Emblem game that gets that right story? Obviously, I know it won't be perfect, but it'll be a better story than the past 2 games have because of their split structure, where they try to compensate for, if you do this path, and in essence, they make things not even make sense because of that.
Literally, the solution is just to make one story.
One story.
Like they can make the cast as expansive as they want. They can make the game as long as they want. As long as it's actually one narrative, that's fine. Again, Radiant Dawn, you jump between, I believe, 3 or maybe 4 completely separate groups of characters, but it's all one story.
No, I will concede to the point of, okay, maybe 8's too small. You could probably have more expound upon that if you want to, as you said, 50 episode anime and all that. I want to have the death mechanic have a story purpose. If Jerry dies in this game, it's gonna suck for you as the player, but you're not gonna feel punished for it. Is what I'm gonna feel like. And in the story, they're not gonna care.
Right, because because they're not integral to the story itself. They're just, again, it's like you get to know your army.
And
so
the problem
them dying isn't about, it doesn't matter to the story because the story is about the Civil War itself, or like the end, or like the calamity that's about to come, right? Yeah. But the character is what the player cares about.
Yeah, and then
they can achieve the whole, like, we're just gonna keep twisting this knife that you let this character die. Like, you can do that still, but don't punish the player so heavily that they can't, as to deprive them of anything else beyond, of like more characters to actually care about.
Well, if we're going to tweak the idea for the sake of making sure that the gameplay itself doesn't get harmed for it, I guess it would be fine to have the alternates or the characters that join in, as every other Fire Emblem has. Yeah. But I do want death to make a difference, both narrative-wise.
Like some games will like say, oh yeah, so and so, died, where like these characters did not get to make it to the end, unfortunately, yada yada yada, right? But
So, good example. You know how I said about Jerry and the whole science bit. You look at it. You go into a chapter where these priests or whatever, they show up and be like,
a character might have like a unique thing on a map, and then like because they're not there, instead it's something else.
Not just that, but let's say the priests are like, oh, we have this unobtainium item that we have, but we have nobody to research it, and then, well, you lost your researcher guy, and you're like, okay, well, it's gonna take exponentially longer to beat this map, and or, well, we can't do this map, we have to go somewhere else, and it diverts you to a different map. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to change branch 2 drastically, but it takes you to a different level that would end up wrapping back to the same railroad that you're on. But you lose out on the victory.
Something like that is entirely fine too, and that's perfectly doable.
And of course, only
if they
one
care to do something like that.
Yes, exactly. So that's kind of why I want to have that death mean something both in a story wise and in a gameplay reward sense on that end. So that
let me interject one more time, just real quick. So, like, if you look at Three Houses on its own, it technically could have had that.
Could have.
If each house was just to be its own thing, and you did not recruit from outside of it, aside from like maybe the teachers and the other staff or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, say you lost Dedu early on and he actually died, right?
Mm-hmm.
In like a map where they weren't doing training.
Yeah.
Like, route these bandits and Dedu died. Okay, you just lost Dimitri's right hand guy. They could have done that, and like, okay, so Dedu's just never going to appear, and all the parts where Dedu might have said something, instead we're just gonna like reflect on the fact that he's not here. Like, okay, or like you were playing Claude's route. You know how Hilda's his number 2?
Yeah.
Well, like, kill Hilda. Okay, you no longer have the sassy number 2 that's gonna help him throughout his journey. Instead, you just like one of the other characters maybe takes the role because, like Golden Deer, everybody's kooky, right?
They're quirky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they easily could have done something like that in Three Houses already, but they did because, like, solely because the fact is that they still want to bank it on anybody can die.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want you to dwell on that because that could quite possibly actually lead to depression for some people somehow.
Oh, come on!
Right? So
play better then.
They still have all these other characters that can still fulfill any generic role, but are still characters.
My answer to that to avoid the depression bit. My answer to that to avoid the depression bit is just play in a lower difficulty if you cannot do that. That is true, yes. But at the same time, like, if the game is going to like constantly just say, oh, like, how could you let this person die? Oh, hey, remember that character that you did, or on the other end of the spectrum, hey, remember that character that you didn't care about that died? We're just gonna keep talking about him. I was like, oh God, please stop! I hate him even more now. Like, here's the cool thing.
Like, it could go the complete other way.
Well, yeah, that's why I said only have it in specific parts, like after they die, a key point in the story where they could have been useful.
Okay, yeah.
And like, before and after the final battle, that type of bit. So, I was thinking about this, that you were talking about, like a unit that you didn't care about and all that. Something that came to my mind was the final battle against your big bad guy. Okay. You get through like half the map, and then he shows up. You know how they have the normal commanding officers in the way back, the defended by like three generals and all that. Before you even get to them, he summons all the dead people that had died on your playthrough, and they have essentially everything that you had equipped, but like double the stats. Or not double stats, but like they match your stats, and that would be kind of like a ominous way of being like, oh, you let these people die. And now you have to fight them one more time.
I feel like there's something that's done that already.
Well,
But
yeah,
I don't think it was Fire Emblem.
Was it Fire Emblem?
I don't think it was Fire Emblem, but I feel like there was something that did that exact thing. So
I wouldn't doubt a Persona game
I
has
just
done
don't
that.
remember where.
I wouldn't doubt a Persona game has done that. But yeah, that would be cool.
Persona didn't do that now.
Oh, okay, well, it sounds like something they would do. But that would be cool because then you're.
I mean, Persona pitted you against your other party members before, but like not in the like, oh hey, so like your party members die permanently. Let's bring like no, like that's none of them die permanently unless they stay dead.
Oh. But that to me would be like a cool finishing touch for that. That would probably define that game as, oh man, that death mechanic is really heavy in this one game. That would differentiate it. But that's just me. I'm
that's just you. I'm looking at I can see your point on that, but at the same time, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here as well because I see where you're coming from. I do, but at the same time, it kind of just doesn't sound like it would fit, or at least not with their general MO when it comes to this franchise. They could do that. That is within their power to do, but they're not going to. Let's be real, because again, they don't want to dwell on that. Okay, well, at the end of the day, it is an army, right?
Yeah,
and people will die in an army in a war, right?
Yeah,
you don't want that to happen. They don't want that to happen. But it can, and sometimes it does. So it happens, yeah, and it sucks. But but the characters, the players will only care about the characters as much as they, care to invest in them, which is how they get the supports, right? And thus, by using the character more, they will see more of the character and what makes them tick. But if they don't, then like your whole thing about endgame units joining up at the last minute, you're not gonna really care about them all that much because they just showed up. Granted, they're mainly there for lore and literally, hey, so in case you're struggling really hard, here you go, you can still beat the game, that's what the Goto is for. That's what that archetype is for. The Athos, the Corel, who joins really, really late in Fates?
Was it
that's good.
Wasn't the old horseman driver? Was it oh yeah, it's we're talking about Fates, right? Fates, you're asking?
Yeah.
The I wouldn't say the retainer. Guy, what's the guy? The old man on the horse that you played the game. Gunther. Yeah, Gunther. He doesn't join you until that whole section where Azura takes you to the other dimension bit, and that's pretty late in the game, very late.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They give you a crutch. So Fire Emblem gives you a crutch character at the beginning to help you out, not to use solely on their own because that's going to be detrimental to the rest of your characters, including the main character, right? But they're there to help you out so that it's doable in the harder games, right? Say Fire Emblem 6, right? You have old man Marcus who served Roy's father and is now serving Roy, right? He's a busted unit. He's very strong, very tanky, and he has good movement, right? Thing is, he either crits a lot or he doesn't double the enemy, right?
Yeah.
He'll either kill them in one shot or he won't.
Sounds like a brave
and
sword.
He's mainly there to set up for your really, really weak units at the start because in Fire Emblem 6, you start off with really pathetic characters, including Roy. Right?
Yeah.
You need to baby your entire starting crew if you want them to be good. Right?
Yeah.
And like, so he's a crutch at the beginning. That's an archetype that the Fire Emblem community calls the Jagan, because Marth had a unit just like that named Jagan, and every game has a character like that. And then similarly, there is a character at the very end of the game that is also a crutch that typically can use just about every magic or every like martial weapon type in the game, simply so that you still have a means of getting through. Because if you need them, then that must mean you've lost a lot of your characters.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like if you don't, like if you still have your units, like you can still use them, and just like that's basically just here's easy mode. Or you can keep playing with the characters that you grew attached to and love and care.
Okay, Reggie. So we don't go on for hours. I just have one question to ask you. Based on everything I had told you about the idea of this hypothetical, non-existent game that won't happen, because even I know it won't happen. How would you feel playing through a game like that?
I mean,
you personally, not what other people think. You personally.
I mean, if it turns out good, yeah. If the story is compelling, if the gameplay is is on a good enough loop to keep me playing, and I'm really easy to please once I start playing a game if it's interesting enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will keep playing if I like something. You know this, considering some of the games that I've talked about that I'm still playing some of them, but especially if it's a narrative-based game, I will typically try and play it to its conclusion at least once. If it plays good, or even if it plays like shit. But like if the story itself is actually good, I will keep playing it.
Same. I
do enjoy a story.
I'm in the same boat, but as I've discovered with the Paper Mario game, the Origami King, the story can only hold up so much to the point that I feel like it's punishment to play the game just to get to the good story bits. But that's a conversation for another time.
I don't know Paper Mario's story writing quality to say anything about. So I know that Mario spin-offs are actually pretty good based on the rest of the community.
Well, I don't want to get...
At the same time, I look at it and I think, well, but it's just Super Mario. Like,
not my point, but you were talking about if the game's good enough, the story.
I get you. Yeah.
Gameplay was terrible.
An example I can give would be Xenosaga, for instance. I really liked the first game. The first game played really, really well. It was very simple to understand, and the story, while confusing, because it had to do a lot of world building in like the first several hours, and all that stuff. It was good. I liked it, and then I played the second one, and the gameplay was fucking weird. Like, they changed the gameplay so much in what's still a turn-based JRPG. Like, I just don't fucking get it. It's fucking weird. I don't like it. But I managed to play through about half of it before I got stuck on a boss. And the only reason why I did was because I was still invested in the story and the characters, because it was split into 3 games, so I had to get the next game. Now that I actually own the third one, I might actually go back and play that again and try and beat it, right?
Yeah. So,
but the gameplay fucking is just weird, and I'm not alone in saying that either. The second game was bad.
So, in closing, for realies now, the whole thing with the Fire Emblem innovation, which is the main starting point of this, was just so we could have something of more stakes involved, more get rid of the branching pathways of these 3 independent stories that don't make sense when you look at them as a whole, because they are marketed like, oh, play the other stories, but then you do, and then you're left more angry than others. than you would have had otherwise looking at it from just one perspective. Some things always, with a big exception, with many big exceptions, sometimes it's good not to have the entire picture told to you, and some of it just theorized about, and just form your own ending based on that. Again, I say that because this game likes to paint the picture and make you decide how it ends, but in a very bad way. But there's something to be said with the linear structure of one story from beginning to end, with separate, with a couple of times where you're able to make a choice that diverts you to one side but still puts you back on the railroads afterwards. Just don't market it as your choice radically changes things like Shadow the Hedgehog did, when at the end of the day your choices mean nothing.
Fucking Hedgehog. That story was ass.
Yes, it was.
The best part of that game, narratively speaking, was also the worst part of the game, gameplay-wise. So, the most interesting part of the game, instead of making you go, holy crap, whoa, it's like, oh my god, this fucking sucks.
Okay, but...
And not only that, but if you played that game in the way that the game suggests you try to do, it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Definitely. And we had an entire playthrough to talk about that.
Need to make a fucking flowchart for that. And even then, it's like, so if you pick from here, and then go 3 spaces down to here, and then connect that to the 2 spaces back over here, up at the top, but then also that will connect over to this spot here in the center, which will then connect over to this spot in the lower right.
The structure just doesn't make sense.
Here at the upper left. It's like, shit.
The structure just doesn't make sense from a story point. You could be killing a whole bunch of orphans in one level, but then join up with Sonic because you decide to give the bank their money back. So it's like, it doesn't make sense for narrative.
It's like if Anakin went to the Jedi Temple, killed all the younglings, and then instead of fighting Obi-Wan, he had a beer. It's like, so about that Palpatine guy.
He kind of sucks, Let's go fight him. And then everyone just forgives you for no reason that you killed the Jedi children. That's exactly the Shadow Hedgehog nutshell. But we're not talking about Shadow now. We're talking about the Fire Emblem. It's just that's my look on the innovation of it. And I feel like this is
basically go back to the roots, and actually put more like add some more flair to it so that we care. Yeah, that sounds like what you're saying.
Yes.
If I was to simplify it to its basest meaning.
Like, if you ask for details, I'll give you details. But if you want the summarized,
your details were kind of roundabout and made me go and like I simplified it into the best way I could the first time around.
I'm just more of a
classic mode,
from a personal point of view. I just want to make sure death counts. They market these games as you lose a unit, that's bad news bears, and unless you want to restart the level or decide to save scum or something like that, you can kind of go around that. But there's something to be said that if a 20 turn game, you don't want to have to redo all that. So you bite the bullet and you do that. So or because they've introduced something so that you don't have to worry about that as much, which is casual mode. Yeah, casual
where
mode.
You lose a unit, okay, I've been defeated, I need to pull back. And then they come back the next chapter like, hey, so they didn't gain anything because they were out of the chapter, because you lost them in that map. So, but they're still alive.
Difficulty-wise, I'm not saying I don't want it to skill gate people for the sake of wanting to enjoy the story. But, you do.
But at the same, so classic mode, but casual, because you still want the function, but you want the narrative to still say something. Despite the fact that you don't want it to impact the function, the gameplay function of it.
Yeah, because if the game, I actually, now that you've said it in that particular way, as opposed to saying it's casual but not. I mean, sorry, it's regular but
I'm
not.
just using Fire Emblem terminology. You're asking that it be treated as classic
mode, but not. But it's casual.
but
yeah,
really
the way
it's
that
casual mode.
but the way
where
you just described it now.
Come back.
But the way that you just described it with that little bit of extra information, I completely 100% agree with you on how that's what I was trying to get at. That is exactly what I'm getting at. Is, I'm not gonna go repeat myself again because I'm not gonna go in circles. But that's just what I feel the next logical step could be. Not what I'm saying it's going to be, because they're gonna do whatever they want. Maybe the next game completely, gets rid of the whole grid system and it just becomes Fire Emblem Beach Party Simulator, and it makes more money than the grid-based game. And
You mean Fire Emblem Heroes?
No, that's a different reason. I'm talking about you have your
Fire Emblem Heroes.
No, Fire Emblem. No.
Try and obtain your favorite character in Summer Edition.
Summer Edition. Well, but here's the problem. It's not in 3D. It's not in 3D.
Winter Edition.
Some people prefer their waifus in 3D. Okay, all right, not just 2D print.
Hey, like 95% of everybody's waifus in that are started in 2D and are still 2D.
Innovation.
All right. Huh?
Innovation. Just laugh.
Yeah.
Why should the waifus only be in 2D? Why can't they be in 3D? Look at Senran Kagura in that game. They went full on when it came to something like that.
God, Senran Kagura, the titty fighter, yeah.
I'm gonna end with that and just say that game. The only reason why I found out about that game is because of Alpharad talking about how Nintendo allowed that game to be on Switch, and for the Japanese market only for it to be ported to English markets shortly afterwards. It was essentially a fondling simulator. I can't believe that they would allow that to be an M-rated game. I would think that would be an A-rated game considering the implications to it.
Well, I mean, it's better than Sony. Sony wouldn't have allowed that. In fact, Sony didn't allow that because their Senran Kagura was some of their games never came to States because just because of the presentation, not even because of like gameplay itself. Like the fact that like most of the characters are like underage girls that are half naked.
Yeah. But Dead or Alive, A-okay.
I mean that they're for some reason they're still trying to market it as something as not a titty fighter when it clearly is.
Oh yeah, just stop with the physics, turn down the physics engine, put more clothes in them, and then you'll get respect.
I mean, it would be better if they did turn down some of the physics, because let's be real, it's fucking ridiculous. Like those games turn physics into a fucking joke.
Gmod physics, man.
They turned an entire system of trying to emulate realism into a fucking meme because of how unrealistic it was.
Oh man,
it worked so well that it moved too much.
Yeah, and so I think that's a perfect way to end this Fire Emblem discussion, and hopefully one day we don't find out that Fire Emblem does end up becoming an ecchi fighter and completely ditch the genre.
It basically already is.
Well, it got really close.
Fire emblem heroes.
No, that I would say the closest they got to something like that was probably Warriors, because they got to go ahead and the phone game. It's not. I don't look at phone games, at least the gacha stuff, to be necessarily like, oh man, this is the future of the series, unless it was born on it.
No,
but you say snarky, and I know somebody out there is going to be like, oh yeah, it totally is. Like, no, the game is so cheaply made that the people that dump the amount, like, all they gotta do is commission an artist one time to make that card, and they get a bunch of money in return for people simping over that card.
Yep, that is true. I thought, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Some really amazing art. and then I saw a clip of gameplay. Like, the fuck is this?
It's a chibi. It's a chibi.
Like,
There's no functionalities.
Why is there 10 of the same character?
And why are they all
On the same
Lucina? Why are they all Lin
I
and
was like-
Lucina?
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like in here I was thinking maybe I get that or try it out, but like, holy shit, never mind.
I remember playing that game when it first came out, only and chasing the Camilla unit that came out with it. After I played the game, I got so bored of it. Huh?
Yeah, you fucking degenerate. Of course you did.
Oh yeah, Camilla was my favorite waifu from the Fates game, just on design alone. But the thing is that I played the game, I played the phone game, and after playing it for like a good stretch of 2 months, I just got very burnt out and bored of it, to the point where I just dropped it. Like the account's still floating in the internet space, and I could go back to it, but my buddy Explodes, he said that good thing you dropped the game when you did, because it became very pay heavy in order to do anything in that game. And it wasn't because they were struggling, it's because they knew they hooked the market of the people that were in there, and decided to do all these jank stuff. Now you could say what you want about
the reason why the franchise is called Waifu Emblem.
Yeah, and you could say what you want about the whole deal with my Dragon Ball game. I play that responsibly. I play that responsibly, despite having like all these units jacked at red 7 and all that.
Dude, can you spot me $25? I burned like $100 trying to get this one character.
Hey, I paid you back in food, so you know. Point being is, dude, that was before I became. Dude, that was before a lot of my raises, dude. So shut up about that. You promise never to talk about it again. Anyway, my main point is that
you say, hey, at least I do this responsibly. Like, dude, you burn like $100 trying to get one character.
Yeah, but I don't go like every week to go find a new waifu, you know, like that. Anyway, my main point I'm trying to make is that the big difference between that and Legends was pretty much that they did not make it very obvious to go ahead and suck that money from you. Like, of course, devs need their money. I get that, but it's when you get to the point where you are being very scummy, that's the problem. And who knows? One day they decide to take that idea of was it Waifu Emblem and put it into a game, to like a volleyball edition, like they did with Dead or Alive. So,
fans would not like it. Let's be real. They know if they made a spin-off like that, fans would fucking rage.
How do you know that?
Because the game is not so. The fan base gets the game for specific reasons, yes, but like if they're gonna release an actual game with its IP, with its title, they're gonna slap that onto a product.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna treat it like that.
Okay, I get
Fire Emblem. I joke about Fire Emblem Heroes because it's a fucking gotcha game. And like the very nature of that being successful is because of the memes that is Waifu Emblem. It's banking on the whole. Oh yeah, so people really love, people really like these characters. Why don't we just give them a system where they can just look at these characters all the time in high fidelity? So they made a gotcha game about it.
I got a question for you that pretty much will cement the whole deal with this. Is that Dead or Alive? It had started as a foundation as a fighting game, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
it did.
And so, how many sequels did the beach volleyball game get?
I believe, technically speaking, it is 5. Although I'm pretty sure it's really actually 4.
Okay, and how did they perform?
I don't know how they perform, but I know
it had to be enough to make sequels, right?
But I know they're more well remembered than the actual fighting game, because that's all people ever fucking think about when they talk about Dead or Alive is, oh yeah, Dead or Alive. Yeah, I've seen that title. Yeah, that's that one volleyball game with the half naked chicks and the boobs that keep shaking everywhere. I'm like, God damn it, no. And so Dead or Alive 5 and Dead or Alive 6 are quote unquote trying to get away from that by saying, and like even using in the advertisement, I'm a fighter. Like, you're not convincing anybody, no matter how much you try to dial it back, because you're still going to dial. You're like, no matter how far you dial it back, you're still going to dial up, because you know your fucking fan base.
Yeah, and that's
You fucking know.
That's kind of where I'm getting at,
And
is that you never know that one game might change or add different fans to what in expectations what Fire Emblem becomes.
Technically, Awakening already did that.
Yeah, and so the logical
Awakening
conclusion-
already did that, and that's how we got Fates, and then we got Heroes, and then we got Three Houses.
Yeah, so there's that to be said. I'm going to cut things off now because that was a really funny and engaging. I don't know how we're going to be able to top this later, but I'm happy we got this.
Regarding Dead or Alive, like, I enjoy that franchise as a fighting game. I do. It's one of my favorite fighting games. I really like some of the characters. I like the gameplay. It's fun. It's kind of like Virtua Fighter, but slightly faster than the earlier titles, and also, I guess, not as complicated, because those games were really combo heavy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I despise fucking shit.
And now
like they're fine for a spin-off. Like, sure, like if Dead or Alive as a franchise had come out just recently, you can bet your ass the volleyball games would have been a phone game instead.
Yeah.
And that would have been fine, because nobody would have cared at that point. But the fact that it got 3 console releases and then got a PSP release as well, like, holy shit.
Someone's buying them. You gotta remember, a bunch of people are buying them.
Itagaki knew his fans. It's hilarious, because the first 2 Dead or Alive games looked really fucking ugly. It wasn't until Dead or Alive 3 and the revamped Dead or Alive 2 that used basically 3's engine and modeling where everything looked actually good. Actually, no, Dead or Alive 2 originally was still pretty good. It was close to how Dead or Alive 3 was, just not as good because it was on a Saturn. But I mean, like, that shit, those games were really good. Fast paced, simple gameplay. You got one punch. You got one button that does punch, one button that does kick. You have a throw button, and you have a block button, and that's it, right? And you can do different stuff with each of them depending on like how you input them and stuff like that. That was really, I like that. It's also one of the few fighting games that I can beat my brother at, so that's the other plus to
That's
it.
why I like it.
And then it's like all the like the fan servicey stuff, the titty fighter reputation. That's just a plus for me. I'm a degenerate. Like, whatever. You mean I can look at pretty stuff while I play a really fun game? Sign me the fuck up. Right?
Well, Reggie, I think we'll end on that note. I think let's quote that for Reggie. If I was editing, I put that right there with a parentheses and in close parentheses and in a dash, Reggie.
Oh yeah. Here, I'll make it easier for you. I'm a fucking degenerate.
Reggie. Well, okay. Well, we'll see you guys next time for the next chapter. I forgot what we were supposed to be doing in the next chapter. I think we were storming a church or something.
Something unimportant that where Dimitri angst some more, like an edge lord.
Things don't change until the blue-haired guy dies. That's all we know.
Oh no, not Felix.
Oh no, not Felix. Oh well, he dies. It doesn't matter. Point being said. See you guys next time. Bye.